Everybody could please come to the front of the room, take their phone or their tablet or whatever it is you're using for your mobile device, put it on this chair, just for the duration of the session. You'll get it back at the end. But it'll be a short session also. We're the last ones between you and the conference party, so we'll keep it crisp. But see a lot of hesitation in your faces. Oh, yes, 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 the first one, thank you very much. Big applause, very nice. Yeah, right, good shaky. I appreciate that, a phone from the Netherlands. Very good, very good, very good. Awesome. So, there's a lot of hesitation in a lot of people's faces though. May I ask, who of you is using the same device for your personal as well as for your professional email communication? Everybody, right? That's what you expect today. Also, hands up, who of you on the same device has access to customer data, CRM data, any kind of enterprise application on the device? Half? Okay. Yeah, very interesting. So, why are we here today? If we look at it closely, every single company out there, no matter what size, no matter what industry you're in, you need to figure out a way how to move all the services that you currently offer on the web, internally to your employees, externally to your customers, to your supply chain, how you move all those services onto mobile devices. So we're not talking anymore about, I need an app or two. Companies need a sustainable mobile strategy, sustainable for the next 3, 5, or even 10 years. So and if we keep thinking along that line, that means potentially hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of mobile devices within one large organization. And as a consequence, dozens, hundreds of mobile applications just within one company. So how do we manage that? This is what we talk about today. Mobile device management, mobile application management. I have with me here in the room David Hathaway. David is a technical key account manager in my team in San Francisco. And I think what's really important to know about Xamarin is that every single person in the customer-facing team is very technical. So everybody on my team is actually a mobile engineer themselves, which means if you talk to them, they know exactly what they are talking about because they have been building mobile applications themselves for quite a while. In David's case, it's especially interesting because he has actually been a customer of ours until 6 months ago when he moved his family with his wife and 3-month-old daughter from Boston to San Francisco to become a part of Xamarin.
So for 10 years, I've been a software application engineer building enterprise line of business applications using Microsoft's technologies. Excuse me, difficulties. And as Stephanie said, my organization asked me to come up with a mobile enterprise strategy. And we were looking at how do we bring ourselves forward from web-based applications and desktop applications into the mobile space. So we started looking across the various platforms. We were looking at different technologies, and it became obvious to us very quickly that Xamarin was the right solution for us. We were using Microsoft Stack. We were doing C# development. We were looking at the various mobile technology providers and figuring out how could we develop cross-platform native mobile applications while still reusing all of our C# knowledge. And as Stephanie said, I had found the technology, and we knew that the technology was great, and I actually had the opportunity to then meet the rest of the Xamarin team. And what I found about the rest of the Xamarin team is that they were as fantastic as the software was. So I quickly found myself selling my home, putting it on the market while it was under construction, and flying my family across the country. As some of you may know, Stephanie here is our VP of Sales and Customer Success. So she has spent her career working in the software and developer tools industry as well. And so our team, as she said, is a very technical team. And Stephanie, when you're not finding her in the office, she may be in one of our local gyms teaching a Zumba class.
Okay, so David, you've been with Xamarin now for quite a while, and you spend your days talking to enterprise customers in different industries. Tell me in general, what are the major trends that you have seen in the mobile space over the course of the last 12 months?
So beyond the way that mobile apps and mobile devices have really changed how we interact with each other, they've changed how businesses interact. We talk a lot here at Xamarin about these micro experiences with devices. You take your device out and you open up an app, and you're in there for maybe 15 to 30 seconds tops. So those micro interactions need to be incredibly impactful. You really need to draw the user's engagement. I've noticed the same thing myself in my day-to-day interactions. The first thing that I do when I need to perform some kind of a task is I take my device out and I check and I see, can I do this task with my mobile device? So if I'm looking for a restaurant to make a reservation at, I pull out my device and I open up the OpenTable app. If I flip through and your restaurant is not in there, you do not exist to me, and I'm not bringing you business to your organization. We've started to see those same trends impact the enterprise. The enterprise is now seeing that mobile devices are becoming more and more impactful to their customers, whereas they were previously seen primarily as actual communication devices for email purposes, calendar, contacts, things like that. They were now turning into devices that enabled companies to operate more efficiently and reach their consumers in better ways.
Yes, exactly. And today, a lot of our customers are asking us, BYOD or not? And what we often see is this is not an either-or decision. Within the same organization, you might have departments that are highly regulated, such as legal or finance. And for some companies, it might make sense that the internal IT department actually provides the devices for these departments. Also on the executive level, sometimes we find that people still prefer to have their device handed to them, perfectly set up with all the applications that they need. But within that same company, it might still make sense to enable BYOD in many other areas for so many obvious reasons. People obviously love to have the same device for their personal as well as their professional activities. And then for a lot of companies, it can be a huge cost-saving factor as well.
So if I can get just by a quick show of hands, how many people here, their first smart device or smartphone was a BlackBerry? Anybody? Yeah, so there's quite a few people here. And that was the standard device in the enterprise for a number of different years. You were seeing that organizations were adopting these devices and they were freeing up their employees to work in ways untethered from their desk that they had never been able to work before. So when I got my first smartphone, I found that it enabled me to do business in ways that I previously had not been able to do so. And it just allowed the creativity and flexibility that people needed. But what happened to BlackBerry was they failed to innovate. They stopped innovating, they came up with a great product and they left it out in the market. And companies like Apple began releasing fantastic new devices with great user experiences.
Yes, really. And then the iPhone launched a whole new wave of devices, really, with a whole series of technical enhancements that changed the way the mobility in the enterprise works today.
So the iPhone, when it originally came out, was pretty universally just dismissed as a toy. It was a really fancy toy, and it allowed you to get your email on it, but you couldn't do any corporate email. There was no corporate provisioning policies or anything like that. But as Stephanie said, there were a number of new features that were added over the coming years to make it a really truly enterprise-ready corporate device. And on top of the consumer-friendly features that they were adding things like device provisioning APIs and Exchange Active Sync support underneath the hood. This was allowing enterprises to really start to truly adopt these devices. What you would start to see is that executives would be carrying these actual devices. And they would be carrying both an iPhone for their personal use and they would have the BlackBerry. And then suddenly those BlackBerries just kind of started disappearing mysteriously out of the fold.
And then really, that opened up the floodgates. And what we see is that what previously looked like that, now suddenly looks like this. So we see a lot of our customers go through what we sometimes call the 7 stages of BYOD. The first one is shock or disbelief. Well, the iPhone is actually really just a fancy toy. It's never going to be an enterprise-able device. The next one is denial. Well, okay, I do have an iPhone, but I also have a BlackBerry, and that is what I actually use to work. Anger. What are people thinking? They can just bring any phone to the office and I'm the one who has to make it work? People start to bargain. Okay, you can use any phone you want, but it's your own responsibility and we do not officially support it, and so don't come to me and ask me to fix it for you. Guilt. At some point, people sit down and say, oh my God, what have we done? We brought all these insecure devices into our corporate network. This is not going to end well, especially if some random people ask you to leave your phone in weird places during a conference. Depression. How am I ever supposed to manage this army of devices, unlimited software updates, and most importantly, employees who keep losing their phones all the time, right? At conferences, exactly. And then, in the end, and I think that's where a lot of companies are going today, acceptance and hope, because BYOD can be a great way to manage your devices in a large organization, if only we are able to manage all the security challenges around it. So the real question of the day is, how do we do that? How do we make that work?
This is where you start to see mobile device management solutions coming in. And mobile device management is all about securing the device so that when it goes out into the field, your assets are protected. Anything that's going onto the device is being protected. You're able to easily enforce PIN locks. You're able to give employees access to their email because you have the device encrypted. You have certificates installed in the policies. Companies like BlackBerry were able to corner markets for extended periods of time because they offered out-of-the-box MDM solutions that enabled IT departments to actually control these devices, where IT departments historically are very, very cautious about letting these types of things into their network. Ultimately, IT staff are responsible for making sure that they're protecting all of the intellectual property and digital assets. And let's be honest, everything now is digital assets within an organization. Everything is in spreadsheets and databases and in document management systems. So if they can't protect that media, they're not going to let those devices into the market.
So what that means, if the device is my personal phone and somebody were to remote wipe it, then all my personal data is gone as well.
Well, that's the really kind of the drawback with MDMs, is that they're a very enterprise approach and they're an administrative approach. They don't play well with BYOD. So when you're bringing your own device into the enterprise and you tell people that they're going to have to wipe the device completely, it sends a little bit of a shiver down their spine. What about all my personal data? And that's where MAMs come in, so mobile application management platforms. So mobile application management platforms flip the script, so to speak, where device management is coming from the bottom up. So you're encrypting the entire physical device and all of the assets on it. If something happens, you need to blow away that entire device. You need to do a remote wipe. MAMs turn that upside down and they take a top-down approach of actually securing the application itself. And they do so through a technology called containerization, or a pattern called containerization. Essentially, the app is actually wrapped in a layer that protects the content within the app. And so everything is secured. It's really kind of like a digital Ziploc bag, so you put your nice little app inside there and you zip it up nice and tight, and then you can securely distribute it out to your organization. The other thing that MAMs do is they secure that data not just at rest, but they secure it when it's actually in transit. So between your endpoints, your data is now encrypted and secure until it actually gets back over to your server.
Very nice. So for both of these areas, it seems like there's a lot of overlap between the features and functionalities. So let's dive a little bit more into the details. How do MDMs and MAMs differentiate themselves?
So there's about 4 different areas where MDMs and MAMs, their functionality falls. And depending on the provider that you look at, you may not see it simplified quite this much. You may see it broken down into a few different categories. But basically it comes down into security, software, hardware, and policy and compliance. So security is looking at the device itself, and these are the things that we've already talked about. These are remote wipes, doing policy management on device, PIN locks, and different things like that. Software is about managing the actual software on the device at any given time. How do you get these controlled and wrapped, containerized apps securely onto the device? How do you do enterprise distribution? The hardware is about securing the actual assets on the device. So if you have, say, an SD card, making sure that you can't plug in any random old SD card, copy your content out of your email, and then off you go with it. Looking at Wi-Fi, making sure that nobody's accessing insecure Wi-Fi networks, or possibly Bluetooth. A lot of people don't think about it, but Bluetooth is just a wireless data transfer protocol. So what you need to do is protect any of the ways that you can get, first the device has the data on it, to make sure that that data is not leaking off of the device. Policy and compliance really comes and is kind of the glue that holds all of these different things together. So each of the other categories are really about enabling these things within the device. And the policy and compliance is about holding all of those things together. As a provider or as an IT administrator, what I'm concerned about is making sure that I know which devices have my data on them, which devices are running which apps. Do they have the right certificates installed on those apps? Do they have the right version of the app? Maybe we've published internally a new version of the app that we knew the previous version had some kind of a massive security leak in it. So policy and compliance is about auditing that information and having the ability to actually take action on that and fix problems that are happening in there. On top of these kind of general categories, MDMs and MAMs are fighting for a marketplace. They're trying to figure out how to differentiate themselves. And each one individually has a number of different ways that they're doing so. They have a lot of value-add features that they're bringing to the table. One of those is security. So integration in with your back-end system. So if you have an Active Directory server on your end, you can install an MDM or an MAM on the back end and tie that into your own Active Directory server. When users are authenticating to ensure that they have access to this content, it comes back to your secure Active Directory server. They offer things like single sign-on. So you might have 2 or 3 apps on your device that are actually authenticating against that same back-end service. So rather than having to authenticate multiple times, every single time you open each one of the apps, it will store information about that and understand that you're authenticated against those different servers. Document management is another one of those places where providers are trying to differentiate themselves. One of the biggest benefits of actually having all of these mobile devices out in the field is your ability to gain access to your resources that are stored securely back on the server side. So you want to be able to make sure that you can control who can access what data. And things like mobile SDKs. So as a developer, you may want to tie some of all of these functionalities together. You have a great authentication layer going back to your secure servers. You have all of this fantastic content, and now you want to build a custom app that leverages all of that functionality. So maybe your solution gives you an SDK that allows you to do that. You can create a custom login experience that reflects your company's design. You can bring in that content and securely know that you're protecting it. And you can tie those things together into a unified app experience. So those are some of the technical things that we talk about when you're looking at what do I want to understand about MDMs and MAMs, how do they work, and what's some of the functionality that I'm looking for. There's a lot of other things that are sort of more non-technical, but are very important to enterprise organizations. For starters, platform support. Which platforms do these individual solutions support? Where MDMs and MAMs are really at opposite ends of the spectrum, and there's a lot of individual point providers, solutions in between. Not all of them have great support for the different platforms. And on the functionality within the platform, maybe they don't support it. They only support it for iOS or Android, but not for other devices. So even though we're seeing organizations moving away from platforms like BlackBerry and over to iOS and Android, you might still have legacy devices in your system that you do still need to manage. So you want to make sure that you have good platform support now and for in the future. You want to take things like your sector of your business into consideration. If you're in a highly sensitive sector, something like a defense contractor or healthcare or financial services, you need to make sure that you're working with a provider that has a good reputation in that industry. It will just make the process easier for you. If you're thinking about the fact that you're now distributing proprietary corporate information out to these devices that are who knows where out in the world, and they're regularly stolen, they're regularly lost, you need to make sure that you have good policies in place and that your provider will support those so that when you get to those regulatory phases, you have great support for that. There's a number of other features. We can really go on and on and on. We can talk about things like geofencing, which would eliminate your ability to view documents when you get outside of your physical location of your office. But what we would just encourage is that everybody really sit down and think about what are your requirements, what types of devices, what types of functionality you need, and take a look at the different providers out there. There's a number of great ones.
Yes, and I think we should become a bit more concrete. We'll look at some technologies that are currently out there available. And especially in Silicon Valley, the name Mobile Iron comes up a lot. It's a company founded in 2009, funded by some of the leading VC companies out there. Sequoia Capital is one of them. They have built quite some traction over the last years. And I think they are entirely focused on mobility in the enterprise, right?
Right, so Mobile Iron, and you'll start to see this trend among the providers, but Mobile Iron has both the device and app management capabilities. And then they offer you both an on-premise as well as a cloud-hosted deployment. So one of the things that we didn't talk about earlier is that there's multiple options for how you might deploy an MDM or an MAM within your organization. If you have a great infrastructure, you have the ability to install that internally. Or if you're just looking for agility or you just don't have the expertise in-house, you're able to bring, to leverage a cloud-based solution from a number of different providers. And Mobile Iron has both of those. And on top of that, they have a really great reputation for strong reporting and dashboard capabilities. One thing about Mobile Iron was that they actually started out in the MDM space, and it was just late last year that they moved into the application management side. So they've now launched their App Connect and App Tunnel platforms, which are now moving them more towards managing the security of the device, of the app as opposed to the device.
Very good. A name that comes up quite often is Zenprise. So Zenprise actually is now a part of Citrix. They were acquired a couple of months ago, and even before the acquisition by Citrix, they were already quite well known as an innovative company and as a leader in the MDM space.
Right, again, so Zenprise also has both the device and app management capabilities, but they also have a really strong data loss prevention mechanism called Zenprise Mobile DLP. So that's their containerization platform that allows you to both secure the data at rest as well as in transit. They also have a very broad support for multiple different platforms in this space, so you can rest comfortably that you know that you're going to be able to use all the different types of devices that you need to within your infrastructure.
Great, let's look at a couple more examples. Good Technology as a company. They're also based in California, and it seems that a lot of our larger enterprise customers are actually looking at them since they seem to have a very strong support for security and management capabilities.
So again, we see that Good, who is, as Stephanie said, a larger provider, does have the device and application management. One of the unique things about Good Technology is that they have a really good installation base in some of the higher regulatory type environments. And their clients appreciate very much from that they have a deep understanding of security and compliance issues. So if you're in that kind of a public sector space where those topics are important to you, Good Technology might be an option for you. Good Technology also actually recently purchased App Central. So App Central is another MAM, and they're bringing that technology into their App Guardian platform.
What about AirWatch?
AirWatch is another one that we talk about quite often with customers, and customers inquire about. So again, you see the device and app management, but they have a very robust product offering. So they have a great series of different features that span all across the different types of functionality that you might expect from an MAM. But one of the unique things about AirWatch is that they offer not just 2, but 3 different deployment options. So they have the typical cloud-based option. They have the hardware-based option where you can install it on your hardware and mechanisms within your data center. But they also actually offer an appliance. So if you don't have the infrastructure in place, but still want to have a secure installed location within your premise, you're able to leverage their turnkey solution.
Very good. Almost at the very end of the list. Symantec is a name that comes up quite often.
Yeah, Symantec is a really interesting one because obviously everybody associates Symantec more in the security space. So it's a natural fit for them to be moving into the device management and application space. So a lot of customers that are looking at Symantec are looking at them because they have a very strong track record of their overall viability. They've been around for a long time. And they offer a very broad mobile security offering in general. So in addition to the functionality that we've been talking about, the device and application management, their offering also spans to things like virus protection on your device and beyond from there. Symantec has been moving more and more into the space through the purchase of one company called Odyssey Software. And Odyssey was an MDM provider, and then they also purchased another company called Nucona, which was an MAM provider. So what they're now doing is, through the acquisition model, and typical of an organization like Symantec, bringing in expertise and technology to fill out their entire spectrum of functionality.
Very good. To round it off, I would like to talk about Aperion. Aperion is a company that we've worked with for quite a while. Aperion, founded in 2009. Aperion is all about bringing the enterprise and developers closer together and actually make it easier for the enterprise to consume mobile applications. So,
yeah, so as we've seen, a lot of the MDMs are now coming closer and closer to the MAM space. Companies like Hyperion are coming up and really focusing heavily on the MAM space specifically. And as we said, Hyperion's strengths and their focus is in the application lifecycle process. So the process of building and developing your application, moving it through the enterprise and getting it out to your devices. And Hyperion is actually going to be launching Xamarin Studio integration. So a plugin within Xamarin Studio that will allow your developers to directly push their applications up into Hyperion's platform, which it can then be packaged up and made available for distribution out to your devices.
Very good. Aperion is also here at our event, so whoever is looking at the MAM space, I would certainly encourage to stop by there and ask directly about more information. And I think that was a very good overview. David, by no means complete. It is a very big space, a space that is becoming more and more important every day. So we could talk a lot about these solutions, but we are the last thing between you and the party. So concluding, David, where is MDM and MAM going? What's the future here?
Well, data security is a critical concept for any company in this space, and we've already really started to see the trend, and we expect to see it continue, which is that the device management expert companies are now moving away from a technology that just isn't really appropriate anymore given the way that devices are being used in the enterprise. So we've seen it, as we said, in the acquisitions of Odyssey and Nucona from Symantec, App Central being purchased by Good Technologies, and also companies like Mobile Iron moving and creating their own offerings in the app management space. BYOD is not going anywhere. It's the way that it's the way that devices are now used within the organization. We're not carrying these multiple devices. And to say that we can lock down and secure and remote wipe everything off the device just isn't feasible. And the enterprises are now seeing that scenario as well. So we expect to continue to see these same trends moving further and further towards concentrating on focusing and securing your data within the app.
Very good, very good. So we are very happy to continue the conversation with all of you across the hotel in the Brush Square Park. Our big Evolve conference party starts there in less than an hour. So we promised to keep this crisp. I think we did. We have a couple of iPhones here, and what else do we have? To put on eBay today. Didn't I mention that before? For the new test lab, yes, that's exactly right. So please, send us your questions via email. Very easy, Stephanie@Xamarin.com, David.Hathaway@Xamarin.com. You find us on Twitter, if our Twitter handle is here, please. We're looking forward to talking with you later tonight at the party. It was great having you all here. And I'll see you again next year at Xamarin Evolve 2014. Thank you very much.